Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss any update from Rouse IAS Study Circle. Join the only official Telegram channel of Rouse IAS Study Circle to get the relevant materials and important updates. Hello and welcome to the Daily News Simplified, the what, why and how of the newspaper analysis from the Civil Service Examinations perspective. So today we are going to discuss the Hindu Delhi edition dated 16th October 2022 and few important topics from the Indian Express Explained section of the last week. The topics which are to be discussed have been displayed on your screen and the timestamping of the same has been provided in the description box below. This topic is in the relation of the Indian monsoon and has appeared in Indian Express Explained section. And as by now you have rightly guessed that this topic falls under General Studies Mains Paper 1 section because it has geography. Further, this topic can also be asked in Environment section because the changing patterns of the Indian monsoon is in relation to the changing climate. And this is the very context of this very article. Now, most of the parts of the northern India, especially Delhi, northern states as well as northwestern states, have experienced very intense monsoon in previous few days. And that is why it becomes very important for us to understand that why is this atmospheric pattern changing particularly over this very region. So if we take particularly the example of Delhi, we see that the South Delhi and the East Delhi were the most hit areas in this season of October rainfall. Similarly, the Southwest Delhi experienced an excess rain of more than 2000% as far as this particular period was concerned. This phenomena was not restricted to Delhi alone. It was widespread all across the NCR region because Gurugram also experienced higher rainfall than average, which was around 3000% in excess. Similar was the case with Faridabad, and not only Delhi but also the other states, for example Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh, Eastern Rajasthan. All these states have experienced higher rainfall which has led to clogging of the roads, streets, drainage lines, etc. Even if we go by the static analysis, the things which we have already read in our geography syllabus, we know that there are two seasons. One is the onset of the southwest monsoon and other is the retreat of monsoon. To understand the present changing pattern of the Indian monsoon, first you need to know that what are the precise dates of onset as well as monsoon withdrawal. If we start from the southern India, the conventional date to hit the monsoonal winds on the state of Kerala was 1st June. Before this, around 15th to 20th May, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands experienced the onset of monsoon. And as we move towards northern India, there is a gap of few days. For example, Karnataka it is 5th June, Maharashtra 10th June, Gujarat it is 15th June, Rajasthan it is 1st July, and the western Rajasthan, that is Thar Desert, is around 15th July. So this is the pattern of the onset monsoon, the ascent of the monsoon from south towards the North India. And that is why, according to the Indian Meteorological Department, there are 4 months of Indian monsoon. These 4 months are June, July, August, as well as September. Second half of September and October onwards starts the retreating monsoon. For example, from the northwestern India, it is 15th September. Then from the central India, it is 1st October. Then in the southern India, that is the peninsular part, it is somewhere between November to December. But the changing patterns are different. The IMD data shows us that the existing dates for normal onset and withdrawal of the southwest monsoon based on 1901 to 1940 data. The new dates which were being used by the IMD from June 1, 2020 based on 1961 to 2019 data has significant changes. For example, if we take the example of our capital, that is New Delhi, the conventional date of onset of monsoon was June 23. But as per new data, it is around June 27. Similarly, for the withdrawal, the date was around 22nd September, but now it is 25th September. So we can see that monsoon has shifted in certain temporal aspects. In this regard, now we will see that what are clear-cut indications or what are the quantifiable data with us which can help us to validate this very claim that monsoon is witnessing significant changes as far as the Indian subcontinent is concerned. Now, first of all, it is very important for us to understand that if we seek the long period average of the rainfall in the monsoonal period across Indian mainland, that remains within the 10% range of the long period average. Now, what is this long period average? This long period average is the average rainfall which has occurred over a particular region, let's say India, in a specific interval of time. To calculate the LPA of India, IMD takes this particular time as the period of 30 years. So that means that if we calculate the average rainfall in India for the previous 30 years, it comes out to be around 88 centimeter for the whole of India. And this 88 centimeter for India is the long period average. So that is why whenever IMD predicts the chances or the probability of rainfall, it has three classifications. First is the normal range. Normal range is the 10% deviation of this long period average. Second is the above normal rainfall. That is when the rainfall breaches this 10% limit in excess of the LPA. And third is obviously below normal rainfall. That is when it is below by 11 or more percentage points. So as far as this long period average is concerned, the monsoonal rainfall in India remains within this 10% limit. But then there are certain spatio-temporal changes across India. The first thing is that yes, the fact is that it remains within the 10% limit, but still, if we have to see the overall monsoonal rainfall, we witness that there has been an overall decrease of around 6 to 10%. That is almost the limit of the long period average. The second thing is that as we have discussed that June to September, these 4 months were the conventional months for the monsoon in India to take place, but there has been a prolongation of the monsoon season. For example, this year we have seen excess rainfall in the northern India even after 15th September and more recently in October. We will discuss that why northern India is experiencing so much of rainfall. What are the various reasons for this high rainfall in this particular time period? But yes, the prolongation of monsoon season is a significant change in the monsoonal pattern. The third important thing is that despite the monsoon remaining within this 10% limit, the intermittency as well as erratic nature of the monsoon has significantly increased. And this is true for both, that is dry cells as well as wet cells. And that is why it is said that because of the climate change, the events of the extreme rainfall has increased by 33% as far as India is concerned. Moreover, the frequency and intensity of the cyclones in the Bay of Bengal as well as Arabian Sea both have increased. And now we all know that the frequency and intensity of the cyclones of the Arabian Sea is also increasing vis-a-vis the Bay of Bengal. So there have been a significant changes in the cyclonic rainfall of India also. Further, the delays in the monsoonal arrival have also been witnessed as we have discussed in this particular chart. But now the question arises that what are the various reasons which are there for this changing monsoonal pattern in India? For this to discuss, I have divided the causes into immediate causes as well as long-term causes. These immediate causes are the reasons for the higher rainfall in September and October months this year as far as the north and northwest India is concerned. So why we are experiencing higher rainfall? That is because of the interaction of three mega phenomena. One is the western disturbances. The western disturbances which originate over the Mediterranean part and comes along India, these western disturbances winds are coming in contact with the retreating monsoon winds, and that is why this particular region, that is the northwestern and northern India, is experiencing some turbulence. Further, because of the atmospheric factors, we have witnessed a low pressure region over the state of Madhya Pradesh. So that is why this low pressure region over Madhya Pradesh is attracting very high intensity winds over this particular area, and that is why both these winds are converging and leading to turbulence and rainfall. Further, the second important aspect is the triple dip La Nina. Now, what do you mean by triple dip La Nina? For this to understand, obviously, first we should know that what do we mean by La Nina. La Nina is the atmo-oceanic interactions which take place in the Pacific Ocean because of several intervening factors. During the La Nina conditions, the waters of the Western Pacific Oceans are warmer than normal, and of the Eastern Pacific Ocean becomes cooler than normal. Further, in this particular region, there are very strong presence of trade winds also, and these trade winds are northeasterly as well as southeasterly in direction, which derives the water from the Eastern Pacific Ocean towards the Western Pacific Ocean. Now, because of the presence of warmer than normal situations on the coast of Australia, there exists the region of low pressure, and here exists the region of high pressure. From this low pressure region, the winds get uplifted, and in this area, the winds get subsided, and that is why the wind movement takes place in this particular direction. So, whenever there is a condition of La Nina and the low pressure situations over the Western Pacific Ocean, it is generally experienced that India receives higher rainfall. So, this is basically the La Nina situation. But now if we take the period of last 3 years, we are witnessing that there has been a stagnant La Nina situation over the Pacific for last 3 years continuously. And that is why we call it as triple dip La Nina. So because of the presence of triple dip La Nina, naturally the amount of rainfall over India will increase. So these are the immediate factors that why we are experiencing so much of rainfall in September and October over northern and northwestern India. Now comes the long-term factors which are responsible for the long-term significant shifts in the monsoonal patterns across India. And all these long-term factors have a common root, that is climate change. So the first factor is the warming of the ocean. As we understand that India is surrounded by the water body on three sides. Here we have Arabian Sea and here we have Bay of Bengal. It is witnessed that both the Arabian Sea as well as Bay of Bengal is rising their temperature, and that is why on both the coast of India, that is western coast as well as eastern coast, we are having the presence of warm pool regions. So earlier what was happening was that during the monsoonal period, because of the presence of rainfall over these areas, the temperature of Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal was getting lower. But now because of the climate change, this temperature is not getting lower. And that is why this higher temperature over these regions are attracting a lot of winds, providing a lot of moisture, and that is why increasing high intensity rainfalls. This rainfall is not well spread across India. They are intermittent rainfalls with certain areas experiencing extremes of rainfall and then certain other areas experiencing droughts. The second important factor is that because of the climate change, the northwestern India is particularly getting heated up. Now, this northwestern India, this is the region which lies majorly in the subtropical area. This area is high pressure area, and this area also has the presence of deserts. So that is why this whole land, because of the climate change and global warming, is increasing its temperature. And that is why this excessive heating is further attracting high intensity winds in the form of southwestern monsoon. The third is growing periodicity of the ENSO circulations. Now, what do you mean by ENSO circulations? ENSO circulations basically refers to the El Nino as well as La Nina. Now, we have discussed what do we mean by La Nina. El Nino is exactly the opposite situation of La Nina, whereby the warm waters reduce their temperature, and that is why the coast of Australia experiences high pressure, which in turn leads to drought situations across the India. And the last important long-term factor is urbanization, which is mainly anthropogenic factor. Now, how this is experiencing or altering the monsoonal patterns? You might all have read about the heat island effect. Now, what is heat island effect? Heat island effect basically refers to that we have generally experienced that within the boundaries of city, let's take this as a city region, and these are the village or the rural areas in the surroundings in the vicinity of this city. So generally what happens is that this city has higher temperature vis-a-vis the village areas in the surrounding. For example, let's say if the temperature in the rural areas is around 35 degrees Celsius, then in the cities it might be around 40 degrees Celsius. So that is why these city regions are known as heat islands. That is the islands of heat. And these heat islands further have very large scale impact on the weather systems, because now again this particular region is experiencing higher low pressure, that is why attracting the winds from the surrounding areas. Further, this city region also have the presence of dust particles, maybe from the vehicular traffic or from the industries. These dust particles further act like hygroscopic nuclei, which in turn aids the rainfall. But this increasing rainfall in the cities obviously will devoid the rural areas from their natural moisture content, and that is why it is witnessed that there has been a significant alterations in the monsoonal rainfall across India as well as across several regions, states and cities. So these are the various causes for the recent shift in the monsoonal patterns across India. So let us now revise this topic in brief once again. Initially, we looked at what are the various dates of the onset of the southwest monsoon as well as the retreat of the monsoon. We saw that the date of the onset of the monsoon, if we take the whole of India, is around 15th to 20th May in the Andaman. If we take Indian mainland, it starts from the 1st June. And if we have to take about the monsoon withdrawal, it starts on September 1 across the westernmost part of Rajasthan. But when it comes to the central India, it is somewhere between 15th September to 1st October. That is the 15 days. In line with this, then we discussed that there has been some changes in the monsoon onset dates as well as monsoon withdrawal dates. Then we discussed that what are the various patterns which we are witnessing as far as the changing monsoon is concerned over India. We saw that overall monsoon remains within the 10% limit of the long period average, but still there has been a decrease of 6 to 10%. Monsoon period has elongated. The intermittency and erraticity of the monsoon has grown, with extreme rainfall or the cyclonic rainfall increasing by 33%. And also there have been certain delays in the monsoonal arrivals. In this line, we discussed that what are the various causes. We discussed this in the terms of the immediate causes which are responsible for the higher rainfall in this particular month across the northern India. Then we also discussed the long-term causes, most of which originate from the climate change. And here we saw that not just the natural but also the direct anthropogenic interventions is also one of the major causes for the changes and shifts in the monsoonal patterns across India. This topic is in relation to the recent report which is published by IMF, which stands for International Monetary Fund, and the report is World Economic Outlook. So first of all, this information is very relevant as far as prelims examination is concerned, that World Economic Outlook report is published by International Monetary Fund. But from the mains perspective, we will analyze some important findings of this particular report and its relevance for the Indian context. So first of all, we will look at this particular graph which is given here. This report says that in the coming year, inflation is going to rise. However, despite the fact that this report does not use the term stagflation, but almost all the findings which this report comes up with reflects that world will be facing the situation of stagflation. Now the question arises that what do you exactly mean by stagflation? By stagflation, we mean that the economic situations will be such that inflation will be on the higher side, the growth will be stagnant, and there will be higher unemployment also. So, this key term stagflation is a combination of stagnant growth plus inflation. That is why the key term stagflation. The third important finding of this particular report is reflected in this particular graph. If you closely analyze this, it says that by 2022, the core inflation is continuously rising. Now, the question is, what do you understand by core inflation? Out of the total inflation, when we minus the inflation of food as well as fuel, which are also known as volatile items, we call it as core inflation. So this report says that by 2022, this core inflation is going to rise by around 6.5 to 7%. Moreover, it also says that it will be only by 2024 when the world inflation will come down back to less than 4.5%. But till 2024, there will be higher inflation and lower growth rates. Now, if we have to discuss particularly about India, according to this report, the worst is yet to come. According to this report, the April forecast of the 2022 said that India will be having the inflation of 8.2%. But this October's forecast says that inflation in India is going to be around 6.8%. However, the 2023 prediction of this particular report is slightly lower. It says that the India's inflation will be around 6.2%. Now here, an important thing is to be understood that according to the Monetary Policy Agreement, the inflation targeting range which was laid down for the Monetary Policy Committee to achieve was 4 plus minus 2%, which means within the range of 2% to 6%. But because of the several regional as well as global factors, this inflation is going to breach this particular range. In the end, this report comes up with certain risks also. The risk which will push the inflation on the higher side in the coming times. So, we will see that what are those risks. First risk is the contradiction of the fiscal as well as monetary policy. Now, fiscal policy is generally laid by the government, and the monetary policy is of the responsibility of the central bank. Now, the situations of stagflation is very much challenging for the policymakers, and this problem is exactly what has happened in United Kingdoms. Because in United Kingdom, the central government was following the expansionary fiscal policy. Because in UK, the central government was following the expansionary fiscal policy. They were doing this in order to stimulate the money in the market, which in turn they expected to boost the demand, which further could lead to increasing the growth prospects of their country. But on the other hand, in order to tackle the inflation, the central bank was following the tight monetary policy. They were having higher interest rates. So the challenge in UK was that there was a direct contradiction between the fiscal as well as monetary policy. So this is the first risk which this report comes up for the policymakers. The second important risk is the geopolitical risk. For example, still the Ukrainian conflict has not stopped. And as much as this Ukrainian conflict will go on, there are high chances of inflation. And that too will be primarily driven by food as well as fuel. So all these are the important findings of this particular report, that is World Economic Outlook, being published by International Monetary Fund. This topic is in relation to the Jayaprakash Narayan, also known as JP Narayan, one of the most influential leaders which India has ever seen. The context of this very news article is that recently our Honorable Home Minister Mr. Amit Shah has unveiled the statue of JP Narayan on his 120th birth anniversary. This statue has been unveiled at his birthplace. The name of the village is Sitaptiara. However, more important is that this place lies in the state of Bihar's Saran district. Now, why we are discussing it? Because as far as the UPSC scheme of syllabus is concerned, this topic finds its relevance in two important sections. First is General Studies Paper 1 in the History section, and second is General Studies Paper 4 in the Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude. because this specific paper also mentions the important learnings of the leaders from India as well as across the world and their contributions. So that is why, as far as JP Narayan is concerned, there are few important facts related to him which we should know, his important contributions, and this will help you to understand that why till date several political parties as well as several leaders claim the legacy of JP Narayan. Be it the national parties or be it the regional parties, almost every political party tried to claim the legacy of JP Narayan. They try to associate their own legacy with JP Narayan. Now, why is this so? So, we will also understand this particular thing. So, the important facts as well as learnings of JP Narayan is divided into two important parts. One is the important events related to him during the freedom struggle, and other is his contribution in post-independence period. So that is why this information will help you in prelims as well as in mains examination. First important key fact is that JP Narayan was associated with the non-cooperation movement which began in 1920s. He has studied in the foreign university whereby he came across important and influential ideas of Karl Marx. The Karl Marx ideas highly moved JP Narayan, and that is why JP Narayan was having more of a socialist outlook. And this you will also learn in his various teachings, learnings, his movements, etc. All that was because of the influence of the Karl Marx in his foreign education times. So when he returned to India in 1920s, he joined the non-cooperation movement, and then again in 1920s, he formed the Congress Socialist Party. See, again an important ingredient of socialism, CSP. Now from history, you all are aware about the formation of the Congress Socialist Party. What were their objectives and all. So JP Narayan was the founding member of the Congress Socialist Party. He highly respected Jawaharlal Nehru as well as Abul Kalam Azad. And more importantly and interestingly, it was the speeches of the Abul Kalam Azad which moved JP Narayan and he entered into the India's political scenario during the freedom struggle. And this got drastically changed after the independence. In the post independence period, he was very much against the electoral politics. Initially, he formed the Socialist Party out of the Congress. He merged his Socialist Party with J.B. Kriplani's Kisan Mazdoor Party, and this merger led to the way to form Praja Socialist Party. This party was very important. He was against electoral politics as we have discussed because he believed that electoral politics is very centralized in nature. And this excessive centralization devoids the local people out of their power, and also it corrupts the minds of the political leaders. That corruption can be in ethical as well as in financial sense. And because of this very fact, he was against the electoral politics and got retired. And rather than electoral politics, he was in the favor of communitarian democracy. He was of the firm opinion that democracy must be established in such a way that the real powers must be with the people or community. But an important turn came in his life during the JP movement. In Gujarat, there was a student protest against one particular mess bill. However, this student protest gradually expanded to the other areas of Gujarat as well. And Jayaprakash Narayan came to know about this, and therefore he believed that the real power should be with the students. He was very much moved by the student politics idea. As soon as this wave reached Bihar, the students of Bihar called JP Narayan to lead them. And this was the moment when he re entered the active political phase of India. And here only he gave the slogan of total revolution. Now, again, this fact is very important. The total revolution slogan is associated with JP Narayan. His next important contribution was against the emergency, that were the anti-emergency movement. Now we all know that during the reign of our ex-honorable Prime Minister Mrs. Indira Gandhi, there was emergency which was laid down, And during this emergency, there were several hindrances, restrictions on the fundamental rights. And that is why, against this particular thing, there were various movements. And the most important phase of all those opposition movement was J.P. Narayan. So it was particularly this period whereby all the opposition political parties against Congress believe that J.P. Narayan will be their head, and that is why till date several political parties claim the legacy of J.P. Narayan, because at one point of time all the political parties, especially the opposition parties, were aligned with J.P. Narayan's idea of leadership. So the important key points out of this whole discussion is: one, he was associated with non-cooperation movement. Second, he was highly influenced by Karl Marx's idea of communism and socialism. Third, he was the founding member of Congress Socialist Party. And that is why even in the post-independence period, it was socialism as well as communism which highly influenced his mode of working in active as well as passive political phases. This topic has appeared in today's The Hindu at page number 10 and is in relation to the Gaurs, which are also known as Indian bisons. The important context of this very news article is that recently the Indian government is considering a proposal from Colombo, that is Sri Lanka, to export a number of Gaurs or the Indian bisons to Sri Lanka to revive the population in Sri Lanka. It is worth mentioning that Indian bisons or Gaurs were extinct in Sri Lanka in the end of the 17th century. So still this proposal is under consideration. However, it becomes important for us from the prelims perspective that we understand certain key facts related to Indian bisons. First of all, it belongs to the family of the wild oxen and is the tallest living and the second heaviest among oxen. It is a social animal and it prefers to live in the group size of about 30 to 40. As far as its location is concerned, this is a native animal to the South Asian region as well as Southeast Asian region. Particularly, if we talk about India, this animal is found in certain regions, for example, Western Ghats, forests of central India, as well as certain patches of forest in the northeastern India. However, it is important for us to know that out of the total global population, 85% of them are present in India. In certain countries, they have been already extincted. For example, we just talked about Sri Lanka, whereby in 17th century it was extinct. As far as their habitats and diet is concerned, they prefer evergreen forests, moist deciduous forests, as well as dry deciduous forests. This means that as far as their areal extent is concerned, they are widely distributed among evergreen and deciduous forests. And because India has the presence of evergreen forests in the Western Ghats as well as Northeast and the deciduous forest in the central India, so that is why this is the major reason that why we have 85% of the global population of Gaurs. They are attracted to the salty and mineral rich grounds. Now comes its conservation status. As far as the IUCN list is concerned, Indian bison is deemed as vulnerable species. Further, as far as the domestic laws are concerned, it is listed under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, and that is why it calls for the proper regulation in the indiscriminate grazing of cattle around the areas where the Gaurs stay. So, again, I am repeating important fact that according to IUCN, it is vulnerable, and in India's Wildlife Protection Act, it is listed under Schedule 1. It is a native species to the South Asian as well as Southeast Asian region, and 85% of the total population lives in India. And in India, they are found in central parts, northeastern parts, as well as Western Ghats. This topic has appeared in today's The Hindu Delhi edition at page number 6 and is very important topic from the ecology and biodiversity section. The context of this very news article is that recently the expert team of the state of Kerala has identified 6 varieties of the plant across the region. And the plant which is there mentioned in this context is neelakurinji plant. This plant is very important as far as the Shola forests of India are concerned. That is why From the prelims perspective, this topic becomes very important. This is going to be a very short topic because all the details are factual in nature. But because it is important, so obviously we have to deal with it. So first of all, we should understand that kurinji is a shrub, and this shrub grows in the shola forests of the Western Ghats. But the question is, are they restricted to Western Ghats? No, they are also found in certain patches of the Eastern Ghats. Its scientific name is Strombilanthus kunthianus. An important and interesting aspect of this neelakurinji plant is that it blossoms only once in 12 years, and that is why it attracts a lot of tourists. And as the name is suggesting us that this plant is neel, that is blue in color. So that is why, because of this blue color, the hills on which they are primarily grown are known as Nilgiri hills. So yes, this is an interesting aspect that Nilgiri hills derive their name from the presence of the blue color of Neelakurinji. As far as its geographical distribution is concerned, they are present in Annamalai Hills, Agali Hills, Iraviculam National Parks of Mannar, as well as Shivroy Hills. So hence, it is present in Western Ghats as well as Eastern Ghats. From the social aspect, again, this area is very important because a specific tribal community known as Palyar, they live in this region. An interesting aspect of this tribal community is that they use the flowering periodicity, that is 12 years, of this plant to calculate their own age. So, the Palyar tribal community are found in the areas coinciding with the growth of Neelakurinji plants, and their periodic cycle of 12 years is used by this particular tribal community to calculate their own ages. So these were the factual informations related to this particular Neelakurinji plant relevant from the prelims perspective.